Emmanuel Hostin, the husband of The View host Sunny Hostin, has been accused of widespread insurance fraud, and Sunny basically admitted to it on camera. Let's talk about it.
Like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life.
True sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of.
Sunny Hostin is suddenly caught in the middle of a legal storm, and Greg Gutfeld and Timpf seem to be having a field day with it. The two Fox News hosts turned the tense situation into a sharp comedy roast, and clips from the moment are now spreading fast across the internet. With Sunny's husband now facing reported $450 million fraud allegations, public discussion has only gotten louder. And according to Greg and Kat's on-air jokes, the humor may be landing even harder than the headline itself. Stay tuned, because what happened next could change the way a lot of people look at this whole controversy.
You look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
Let's talk about Dr. Manuel Hostin, the orthopedic surgeon and Sunny Hostin's husband, who is now being drawn into a major legal dispute. A lawsuit filed in December accused him of being part of a scheme that allegedly defrauded the healthcare system. The claims centered on questionable medical bills and alleged illegal kickbacks, and he was not the only one named. Nearly 200 people have reportedly been listed in what some commentators say could become one of the largest RICO cases New York has seen in years. Meanwhile, Sunny was still on television, giving her usual lectures about fairness, ethics, and accountability. But while she was speaking out on everyone else, the headlines suddenly turned toward her own front door. The irony was not lost on critics online, who called it out immediately. Some even compared the scale of these allegations to some of the biggest fraud scandals in modern history.
I want to hit myself in the face so I can feel something. You know, it's like so boring. He's like, yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the poors. But, you know, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart, and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish, and I just want to hit.
That is when Greg and Kat stepped right into the chaos, and they came in strong. Gutfeld looked almost thrilled to lean into the moment, tossing out one joke after another as the controversy kept spreading online. To him, the perceived hypocrisy seemed too tempting to pass up. At that point, this no longer felt like standard political commentary. It had turned into a full-on comedy roast. Timpf did not ease up either. The moment the story broke, she reacted like someone who had been waiting for a headline exactly like this to land. The sarcasm kept coming. The laughter did not let up. The jabs kept landing, and the internet watched every second of the drama play out in real time. What makes this whole moment hit so hard is that it is not just about one joke or one headline. It is about how fast a public image can shift when controversy starts following someone into the spotlight. Online, people are not only reacting to the allegations, they are also reacting to the tone around them, and that is where the conversation gets even more heated. For critics, the timing made every sarcastic comment land with a little more bite. For supporters, it all looked like another example of media personalities turning a serious dispute into entertainment. Either way, the clip gave people plenty to argue about, and once that kind of reaction takes over, it tends to spread far beyond the original story. That is why the response mattered so much. It was no longer just a legal headline or a television joke. It had become a larger online conversation about optics, accountability, and how quickly public opinion can flip when the internet decides to lock in on a target.
It's about the view. It's like it's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth and when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're honest.
For Kat, this did not even feel surprising anymore. It felt almost inevitable. She watched Sunny's carefully polished image, along with the high-minded moral lectures around her, start to crack as the controversy pulled the spotlight straight into her personal life. In Kat's view, the whole situation seemed to highlight a contradiction that critics online just could not stop talking about. For years, The View has built a brand around speaking on ethics, accountability, and integrity. But now, with so much chaos swirling around Sunny's own household, those speeches suddenly landed very differently. Critics were quick to point out that preaching about morality while your own life is under intense scrutiny does not exactly come across as consistency. To them, it looked more like a storyline that no one could keep neatly lined up anymore.
The witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys.
They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time. Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
Next, Joy's gonna say she's never heard of carbs. Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's.
The whole situation started unfolding like a primetime TV drama, except this time nobody was scripting the twists. They were writing themselves. Greg Gutfeld leaned all the way into the moment, joking that Sunny might want to launch a new segment called Allegedly Yours, where she could deliver fiery moral lectures while carefully sidestepping her own legal headlines. Timpf added her own sharp sarcasm, joking that this controversy had finally given The View something people might actually want to tune in for. But for Greg and Kat, it was not just about poking fun at the controversy itself. They were also taking aim at the larger image the show has spent years building, a space where the hosts often present themselves as the final word on right and wrong. According to critics online, that image looked a lot less steady once the attention turned back on Sunny. At that point, the whole thing felt like watching a carefully built platform start to buckle under the weight of its own contradictions.
All right, Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys?
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines.
Sunny's reputation for moral superiority seemed to start unraveling fast, at least in the eyes of online critics. Greg Gutfeld moved through the controversy with total confidence, tossing out sarcastic jabs like someone who was clearly enjoying every messy second of it. Kat, meanwhile, looked genuinely amused, as if she was having a blast watching the loud moral lecturing around The View get dragged into the spotlight. She even took aim at the show's dramatic courtroom-style debates, joking that it might as well be renamed Financial Scandals and Finger Wagging, where big ethics speeches show up right alongside hypocrisy claims and primetime tension.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
Greg pushed the whole thing even further into the absurd. In his version of the bit, it was like Sunny stepping up to a game show wheel loaded with labels such as fraud, privilege, and outrage, turning a serious discussion into pure spectacle. Behind the scenes, people online imagined it feeling less like a normal TV moment and more like a soap opera colliding with a major PR headache. Some viewers pictured producers scrambling, executives quietly panicking, and distraction ideas getting tossed around in every direction just to move attention elsewhere. The same hosts who were often quick to call out conservative slip-ups, critics said, suddenly leaned into softer, gentler talking points, all very heavy on love and light energy. To critics, that seemed to send one clear message: step back, regroup, and let the lawyers deal with it from here.
No, I'm also not surprised that there's one part of the video from the show yesterday that you left out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we roll that, please?
I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen it.
Who is that? Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five. Who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this: his show should be called Cat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it.
Hey. Somebody's flirting with little cat over here.
Well, she's the Republican one at the table, but I just think as a libertarian, I'm always looking to find common ground with other people because nobody really shares my politics. So I find some common ground in The View where she thinks I'm funny and I agree.
This was not being framed as a simple personal scandal. Online commentary turned it into a defining media moment, one that seemed to shake confidence in a culture that critics have long described as smug and heavy on moral posturing. Gutfeld and Timpf leaned hard into sarcasm, pushing the irony every chance they got. In their version of it, when a show built around virtue signaling suddenly gets linked to allegations with real-world fallout, it risks losing more than just public goodwill. It also risks losing the authority it has spent years claiming for itself. Gutfeld's commentary came across as more than just mockery. It was sharp, targeted satire aimed at showing how quickly polished moral messaging can start to fall apart the moment it runs into uncomfortable facts and real accountability. To critics online, that was the real sting of the moment. Not just the jokes, but what those jokes seemed to expose. And that is exactly why the reaction kept snowballing online. What started as a few sarcastic lines quickly turned into a wider conversation about image, credibility, and how fast a public figure's narrative can shift when the spotlight moves from criticism to scrutiny. For some viewers, the jokes landed because they felt sharp and timely. For others, they felt like a reminder that the same people who often speak with certainty about everyone else can look a lot more vulnerable when the pressure turns back on them. Meanwhile, the online chatter kept splitting into two camps, with supporters pushing back against the mockery and critics treating it like proof that the whole situation had already taken on a life of its own. That split mattered because it showed this was no longer just about a punchline on TV. It had become part of a much bigger media story, one where every reaction, every clip, and every repost seemed to add another layer to the controversy.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
And then there is the sheer scale of the reported fraud claims, with numbers so enormous that they do not sound like a simple clerical slip. They come across more like something out of a financial thriller, the kind of figure that would make even seasoned Wall Street veterans stop and look twice. It is the sort of allegation that, if taken at face value, feels way beyond an ordinary mistake. Kat Timpf also pointed to what she described as a clear double standard in media coverage, saying some outlets are quick to spotlight the smallest missteps by certain public figures, yet suddenly sound a lot more cautious when the story involves someone with deep media ties. Gutfeld leaned into that irony even harder, joking that at this point, irony itself should probably rent a Manhattan penthouse just to stay front and center for a story that keeps writing its own punchlines.
Oh, you know who just stunk up The View. The Bidens joined The View this morning for the entire hour. The audience was caught off guard, but knew something was up when they saw a dozen Secret Service agents and 2 embalmers. There were a few awkward moments, though, when a confused Joe asked if he could bid on the showcase. But was he surprised?
Greg pushed the sarcasm even further, treating the whole situation more like live satire than straight news commentary. Instead of leaning into the usual wave of online outrage, he joked that a nationwide popcorn fund would make more sense, because in his version of the story, this had all the drama of a full-scale media blockbuster. The message behind the joke was pretty obvious. In that framing, the situation had moved beyond ordinary controversy and into full spectacle. Greg suggested that Sunny's next chapter would not be about legal analysis, but about the kind of media spin-off that tends to follow any high-profile scandal. Rather than calling it plain hypocrisy, his satire painted it as something carefully packaged, tightly managed, and now being consumed by the public in real time. Meanwhile, critics described The View's response as emotional and selective, with a lot of unity and reassurance, but not much direct engagement with the criticism being raised.
Easy. Oh. That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
Kat Timpf was clearly not about to let this moment pass without a sharp jab of her own. She joked that, in some alternate version of events, the show would conveniently skate past the serious allegations and shift straight into safer territory, like fashion talk, celebrity chatter, or lighter pop culture topics. She even said the program might as well be renamed The Skew, a playful nod to what critics describe as its tendency to move quickly from tough questions to softer framing, depending on who is sitting in the spotlight. Greg Gutfeld pushed the satire even further, imagining the kind of reaction he believes would erupt if he were even loosely tied to a case of that scale, saying it would be instant, loud, and non-stop before anyone could finish their morning coffee. In that exaggerated contrast, the point they were making was not just simple disagreement, but what they framed as a very visible double standard in how similar stories get handled, depending on who is involved.
Kat, how many co-hosts has The View had since it first started? I've lost count. I don't know any of these people.
No, that's because they don't stick around long enough. There's been 17 since 1997. That's a lot. That's because they're women.
Oh, really?
Their hormones, they're changing their minds. I don't want to work here. Yes, I do. That's why women are always changing jobs every day.
Wow.
Yeah. I just quit.
Direct the mail to Catherine Timpf. Not me. I disavow everything she...
And The View seemed to keep moving, as if the noise would eventually fade on its own. But this story showed no real sign of going away. With Greg Gutfeld and Kat Timpf highlighting every angle on air, the conversation only picked up more steam. In their framing, the larger issue was not just one lawsuit, it was the way very different standards can be applied depending on who is under the microscope, and how public accountability is often shaped by influence, personal branding, and media loyalty. While one side handled the moment with careful, controlled PR messaging, critics argued that the real public conversation had already shifted somewhere else. Greg and Kat, meanwhile, turned the saga into sharp-edged satire, making headlines into punchlines, while still keeping the underlying controversy front and center. And in that back and forth, the story keeps staying alive. The reactions keep rolling in, the debates keep heating up, and the jokes keep writing themselves. If this breakdown of the Greg Gutfeld, Kat Timpf, and Sunny Hostin reaction had you thinking, like, subscribe, share, and comment, and I will see you on the next one.